What's going on, Star Wars fans? Welcome to another Star Wars Theory. My name is John Solo. So the other day, after watching The Force Awakens for the umpteenth time, my mind began to wander, and I started to think about all of the possibilities for Episode 8's story. Like, what's gonna happen in this scene? Rey is holding out the lightsaber almost as if she's trying to give it to Luke, but is he really gonna take it? Realistically, he should still have the green lightsaber from Episode 6, right? So is his old lightsaber just gonna be Rey's? I mean, yeah, that makes total sense, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if that were the case. But then I got to thinking about how building a lightsaber is an important part of becoming a Jedi. Anakin Skywalker did it, Mace Windu did it, Ahsoka Tano and a multitude of younglings did it. Even Luke, decades after the Jedi were destroyed, built his own lightsaber.
I see you have constructed a new lightsaber. Your skills are complete.
So don't you think he'd want his Padawan to go through a similar training process? I mean, she's already being trained on a remote planet by a once legendary Jedi turned hermit who went into hiding for an extended period of time. That's about as similar as you can get, so I think it's safe to assume that we'll be seeing even more similarities as she trains, including building her own lightsaber. And that raises the question posed by the title of this video: what color will Rey's lightsaber be? Before we get into possible answers, let's talk about Kyber crystals, aka lightsaber crystals, because since the majority of the expanded universe was retconned, the way that Kyber crystals work has changed. In new canon, lightsaber crystals are totally colorless until they've been found by and have bonded with a Force user. In old canon, crystals produced all kinds of different colors naturally, and the Force user would choose which color they wanted. Typically, but not always, the color chosen had some sort of significance and represented a value. We'll talk more about that aspect in just a minute, because first I want to answer the question that the new canon raises. What determines the color the crystal changes to after it's found? This is where it gets a little tricky because we can't say for sure. We know that the Force guides the Jedi into picking a certain crystal, but as for what determines the color the crystal changes to, this requires a little hypothesizing. But I have an idea. Prior to the new canon, when the Jedi picked the color of their lightsabers, there also existed three different branches or classes of Jedi: the Guardians, Consulars, and Sentinels. Each of these branches focused on a different area of study and attracted Jedi with personalities that fit best within them. For example, Jedi Guardians were tough. They were trained in many forms of combat and often seen as representatives of the Jedi Order. A Guardian chose the color blue for his or her lightsaber as it symbolized solidarity and uniformity among the class, though other colors were accepted as well. Now, what I just shared is no longer canon, but needs to be examined through new canon lenses, because this way we may be able to determine what influences the color of a Kyber crystal. Think about it this way: a Jedi that chose the path of Guardian most of the time had a blue lightsaber. Just like every other Guardian, he or she chose this path because it suited his or her personality and morals best. This means that most Guardians have the same or similar personality and or morals. Although the Guardian branch may no longer exist, this is important. By looking at the Jedi who still exist in the canon universe and were a part of that branch, we can see that there is a consistency between the type of Force user and the color of their lightsaber. For example, Anakin Skywalker, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Plo Koon, and Ajen Kolar all have blue lightsabers and fit within the Guardian class. Of course, there are outliers: Eth Koth, Luke Skywalker, and Mace Windu, to name a few. But each of these Jedi, or at least the latter two, had something especially unique about them, which is what I believe caused the unique color of their lightsabers. The point is, in the new canon, most anyone who used the Force in a similar fashion as Obi-Wan Kenobi or Plo Koon, and by the transitive property a Jedi Guardian, would have a blue lightsaber because that is the color that fits them best, whether the Jedi Guardian class exists or not. This concept is something that we can apply to the other branches of Jedi and how I plan on finding the color of Rey's lightsaber. Don't misunderstand me, I'm not claiming that I know the correct answer, but instead just a possible answer. Let's look at the other two branches of Jedi, starting with the Consulars, by far the most passive of the Jedi, always choosing the most peaceful path available. Consulars typically had green lightsabers, which was symbolic of their commitment to peace. Master Yoda and Qui-Gon Jinn were both Consulars, and though Episode 1 may not serve as the best evidence that Qui-Gon was the most passive person around, no one can deny that Yoda only chose combat when it was the best course of action to take. Feel free to disagree with me, but personally, I don't feel that Rey fits very well in either the Guardian or Consular Consular path. I could possibly see her as a Guardian after seeing the way she dealt with the thugs on Jakku, and especially after that duel on Starkiller Base, but unlike a Guardian, Rey doesn't really rush into combat, yet unlike a Consular, she doesn't really shy away from it either. In my opinion, I think Rey falls somewhere in between the two classes. Luckily, there is a third class that does just the same: the Jedi Sentinel. I feel like this is an opinion that some people are going to disagree with, and that's totally fine. But before you do, let me read to you first an excerpt from Wikipedia about the Jedi Sentinel. A Jedi Sentinel was the name given to one of the 3 distinct branches of Jedi that sought a balance between the other 2 branches. While they possessed considerable combat skills and had somewhat extensive knowledge of the Force, Sentinels blended both schools of teaching and amplified them with a series of non-Force skills, such as in the fields of security, computers, stealth techniques, demolitions, repair, or medicine. After reading this passage, I couldn't help but think of the very first scene that Rey appears in Episode 7, because in this scene she displays how she's refined some of the skills that Sentinels focus on: security and repairs. Later on, we see her exhibit these same skills on the Millennium Falcon.
This hyperdrive blows are going to be pieces of us in 3 different systems. What'd you do?
I bypassed the compressor.
Now, of course, these skills are not exclusive to Jedi Sentinels, and this is not the only reason why I think she fits best in that class. It's also the way she problem solves. Another passage from Wikipedia states, while a Guardian might bash down a locked door and a Consular simply knock, a Sentinel would instead use equipment available or ingenuity to pick the lock. Think of the scene where Han Solo and Chewbacca arrive on the Millennium Falcon once again. When Finn and Rey believed they were stormtroopers, they weren't going to fight them head on or try to talk their way out of the situation. They were going to emit toxic gas onto the Falcon to take the troopers out. In the same spirit as this, a little bit later, after being ambushed by Conja Club and the Guavian Death Gang, Rey released the Rathtars instead of trying to fight them. This wasn't her plan, of course, but the point is still there. I believe that out of the 3 branches of Jedi, Rey fits in the Sentinel branch the best. But this is where the theory gets a little more complicated. The only Jedi Sentinel whose existence is still canon is Quinlan Vos, but he doesn't wield a yellow lightsaber like you would expect a Sentinel to do. His lightsaber is green. If the only Jedi in canonic existence with similar Force, combat, and problem-solving techniques as Rey wields a green lightsaber, then I believe that her lightsaber is going to be green as well. And really, this works out perfectly. The Skywalker lightsaber is known to not stay in the same hands for too long anyway. No pun intended. I don't mean to deviate too much from the theory and start hypothesizing about Episode 8's storyline, but losing the blue lightsaber at some point, followed by her constructing her own green one, seems oddly appropriate considering who her master is, don't you think? Anyways, I've kept you guys here long enough. Now, I want to hear what you think. Am I onto something? Do you think it'll be a different color? If so, what color do you think it'll be? Leave your thoughts in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed this video, consider hitting that like button, maybe sharing the video with a friend, or subscribing for weekly Star Wars content. Right before you go, I just want to say thank you guys so much for watching. May the Force be with you, and remember, John shot first.